What if you could join a network of business leaders who share your Christian values, who reject the separation of faith and business, and who have a fierce vision for success? Welcome to Business Makers Network, a network that strives to create community, build intellectual wealth and practical business knowledge, and grow thriving businesses for the kingdom. We're not just another business network. We are a community of unapologetic Christian leaders who understand that success in business blesses our customers, blesses our families and employees, and in the end drives greater profits. All of Christ for all our business efforts as we aim to take the talents God has given us and turn them into 30, 60, and 100-fold. With a combined net worth already exceeding $1 billion in committed memberships, our members are reshaping the business landscape while staying true to our Christian values and taking dominion in the lanes God has paid for us. As a member, you'll gain exclusive access to our Business Makers Network app, discounts to live workshop events, network calls with key influencers, access to like-minded Christian business leaders, a pool of hands-on intellectual wealth and practical business knowledge, mentorship and menteeship programs. We will be rolling those out over the coming year. Read-only access for the tier above you for educational purposes. Invitations to our annual corporate partner dinner. Networking events at the Fight Laugh Feast conference. We offer membership tiers designed to match your business journey. From our exclusive Double Diamond level for industry titans, to our green membership for promising startups, to our MVP tier that is looking for a community of Christian, like-minded business leaders. There's a place for every serious business leader in our community. Your network is your net worth. Join Business Makers today and become a part of a movement that is changing the face of Christian business leadership. Visit our website now to secure your membership and step into a community where faith, business, and success align.
Just not.
We're healthy and we're alive. That's all that matters.
We are not healthy.
Yeah, well, you'll probably hear us cough a little bit. I don't know what channel this is on here.
We are sick people.
There we go. I feel it. Welcome to Water Break. I was almost say cross politic, and I was like, no, this is my wife. She does not do cross politics. She's not here. 2 weeks ago, let me take you on a little journey here before we really get into things here.
Journey of our
2 weeks ago, I got
sickness.
pneumonia on Sunday.
Yes.
Didn't know it until Wednesday.
I thought it was a man cold. This is partly my fault.
It was obviously more than a man cold. I hurt. And then Wednesday, it's not getting better, and Annie's just like, you need to go to the doctors. You need to go in. And apparently I get in there, and I got like the pneumonia had gotten up to 103-degree temperature, and Andrew, our doctor, was like, oh, that's not. I thought I was like 99. I was like,
you were so sick.
And the pneumonia just had kind of been marinating in my chest for a couple days. And Andrew's like here listening to my lungs, and they're crackling and popping and everything. So I went and got some antibiotics, and thank God for antibiotics. About a day and a half, I started feeling better and everything. And then, of course, now you'll probably hear it during the show. I have still a cough from the pneumonia. And then Annie got it on Sunday.
Yeah, you gave it to me.
I gave it to her. It was bacterial pneumonia. I gave it to her, and then she wakes up. Everyone's getting ready for church. She's already kind of maybe already thinking about maybe not going to church because she wasn't feeling well. And then she got cold, which was indicative of the bacterial pneumonia, the infection.
This is an amazing story.
It's a great story.
The pace at which you're telling
Anyways,
it, I'm sure our audience is like, wow, and then what?
Every couple's experienced this, where the spouse starts to get sick, and then you just kind of almost start getting mad at her. It's like, no, you can't get sick. This is what is about to happen is not going to happen because I can't have you go down.
Oh, I see. Yes.
And I think we've kind of felt that towards each other a little bit. It's like, you can't get sick.
Yeah, it's true.
You can't.
It's true.
Anyways, but by the grace of God, we kind of knew it was. And so right after church, I went and got antibiotics, and Annie never really got into the temperature zone that I got in, and was able to, I think, kind of deal with the infection of the bacterial pneumonia pretty quick. But you got a cough too.
It still got me, which is amazing because I started those antibiotics so fast, which I hate antibiotics, but
Because you don't like that gut reset. I feel nothing. I feel no different in my gut.
I actually do think that kind of just wiping your gut out once a year or so and then just like reseeding it really well is not probably a terrible thing, but it's a pain in the butt. And I don't like antibiotics for that reason. But if it's that or get so sick you look like you're going to die. That's
now, I know this show's about asking you questions.
Yeah, well, we haven't even told them what it's about. All we've done is talk about our sad selves and why I sound like I smoked a pack this morning. Maybe I did.
But that's one of the reasons, actually, I wanted to talk to you.
Oh, okay. What do you want to talk to me
about? You've mentioned a couple times, and I know you've talked about gut health and stuff like that. I don't know if you talked about it that much on our show before, but when you take antibiotics, apparently it resets your gut. Why does it reset your gut?
It just kills all. You've got good bacteria and not so good bacteria at any given point in a gut, and a really healthy gut has the right populations of the right stuff.
Okay.
And
for help like digesting or
to handle it. It drives immunity. There's a gut brain axis where they're connected to each other. It's how you digest food.
My gut is connected to my brain.
Yeah, there's definitely a connection between gut and brain. Your gut's where a majority of whatever. It's a whole rabbit hole.
No, I'm asking you.
Yeah, it's okay. No, it's but what an antibiotic does is it just wipes out all of it, right? So you're trying to kill the bad stuff, but it doesn't know to differentiate between only kill these pneumonia causing bacteria. It just kind of wipes out everything.
Okay.
So you're kind of in a bad way, gut population wise, after you've done a whole course of antibiotics.
Right. Like for me, I'm almost on 10 days.
Yeah, at least that's the current theory. Obviously, gut, what we think we know about gut is constantly changing. So what I do is and I call it a gut reset, but really it's like a repopulation of specific strains that at least.
Strains of what?
Bacteria.
Okay.
At least specific strains that, to my knowledge, as far as I've researched, I think are really beneficial.
Okay.
Which would be Akkermansia and Bifido.
Okay.
I do Joel Green's gut reset, which is a really funny titrating up of red apple skins. And then he has some young reds, HMO, and he has a product called Young Gut. It's all on his website if you guys want to look into it. But I swear by it. I have my kids do it anytime they have to do an antibiotic. We really try to use antibiotics sparingly, obviously, but I don't really know a way around it with something like this. This is hard hitting. Like I got on him right away. I can't believe how bad my lungs felt and how rapidly I went downhill. Even
though you had antibiotics,
like as soon as I felt anything coming on. Yeah, so pretty crazy. So when I'm done with these antibiotics, I'm going to do that.
So that's when the gut resets. So now for me, I'm 9 days into the antibiotics. I think Friday, tomorrow's my last day for the antibiotics, and so that's when I should start the gut reset.
I should probably do it for you also.
Okay.
Honestly, I'm going to be really honest, you guys. I don't want to spend the money because Gabe's really bad about remembering to do things like this, and he's going to whine about eating apple peels. And
I'll eat the whole apple.
No, you're not supposed to eat the peel. You need to eat the peels.
You need the peels?
Yeah, see? This is why I don't.
So you eat the peels.
You want to eat the peels.
So, okay. And now, not all the time should we judge based off our feelings and everything, but I honestly don't feel any different with this, I guess, gut reset that's happening versus 2 weeks ago when I had full microbe. I mean,
honestly, Gabe, also
microbes or whatever in
your
my
gut probably wasn't great before either.
I feel good though. I don't feel bad.
I mean, gut's funny. Like some people walk around having constant gastrointestinal symptoms, like constant, like they have gas, they have bloating, they have explosive diarrhea, like whatever. And those are the people who are like, I know I have gut issues. And sometimes that's just the way they are all the time. Sometimes it's just, I can't eat cruciferous, or I can't eat this, or else I have so many problems. You know what I mean?
You'll feel like a bloated belly or something like
everything.
that.
I have sensitivity to everything. And so much of that is gut related. And just different the state of your gut, But I mean, gut can drive mood, gut can drive energy, gut can drive all kinds of things. And so I'm guessing you're probably not coming from a place of excellent gut health to begin with, and you just might be one of those people who isn't as symptomatic in the really classic ways. But I think because our gut is so central to so many aspects of our health, I think if it's within your power to do your best with what you know to repopulate it after you just wiped it out, I think it's worth doing. But again, I'm not spending the money if I don't think you're going to do it.
Yeah,
I don't think he's going to do it.
Right. So with the so basically we're talking kind of gut health. And the symptoms of like a bad gut, gas, diarrhea,
those are like your
bloated
classic
bellies.
ones. But again, anxiety,
gut aches, but like tummy aches, stuff like that.
Okay, that's really obvious, but it can affect a lot of other things. I mean, and your immune system is derived out of your gut also. So a lot of people who just get sick all the time, or have anxiety or depression type symptoms, a lot of times a doctor will just be like, well, here, take this medicine or take this antidepressant. And a lot of times they have major issues in their gut.
Interesting.
And there's a chronic buildup over time too. You know what I mean?
Like years. You could be years of
so just eating really, really poorly, or, and we've talked about this before, eating so selectively only certain kinds of foods where down, long term, like if you only eat meat, you're gonna over proliferate akromansia. You're gonna and akromansia checks bifido, so things will get skewed eventually if you're not eating a broad variety. And a lot of foods that are considered fermentable, which a lot of people avoid, they don't want to eat legumes and broccoli, and either because they don't like it and they don't have a taste for it, or because their gut doesn't handle it well, and they haven't taken the time to very slowly titrate up, because they know those are the kinds of foods that actually their gut needs in the long term. So this is a very sorted thing.
That's helpful. So one of the these last couple weeks, I'm not actually on tons of carbs like I used to be. I do eat an egg and a piece of toast in the morning, or egg and a hole is what we call it.
An egg and a whole a day.
But I would say this last 2 weeks, I've been craving carbs.
Yeah.
Would that be connected to like my gut reset?
Probably. I mean, I don't really know on that front, but almost everybody, when they're sick and they don't feel well, their body wants carbohydrates.
It's like a dog want to eat grass.
Well, I mean, like something like crackers or bread or something are easy on the stomach. They're easily digested, and they also just they spin down cortisol, so they kind of are comforting. So there's a reason that those sorts of foods are considered comfort foods. You know, so barely ever when someone is feeling ill are they like, I just want steak, or I just want, it just doesn't sound good, you know,
true.
Which is one of the reasons when you don't feel well for extended amounts of time, women with morning sickness deal with this a lot, where it's like months possibly of being really nauseous or low grade nausea. Like all they want to do is just eat toast, because that sounds good when you're nauseous, and it's really hard to eat protein, eat vegetables, the kinds of things that, theoretically your body would appreciate.
Or maybe make you feel like you want to throw up.
I know. So I would, I mean, my brain would go first to like, you're just not feeling good. That's probably why you're craving that. You know what I mean? So, but also some antibiotics can be off-putting to the gut. Like they can make your gut a little upset, like a lot of medications can. And I think instinctively our body knows that if you eat some carbs with that can kind of help settle that a little bit too. So it could be a little bit of all that.
That's very helpful. And before we move on, because the show is not about gut health, although we probably should do a whole show on that alone.
I know. We need to bring Joel on to talk about gut. He's the best on the whole topic. He's great on it.
What are some, before we move on, what are some like books or resources, podcasts that you've listened to? Joel Green, you've already mentioned.
He's the best one,
in
my opinion.
Okay.
There's other docs out there. A lot of them all sound the same. And I'd have to, one of the things about being sick, you guys, with this sickness,
brain fog.
My brain is not working. Like yesterday, I couldn't drive. Like I could drive, but I was like not turning the right way. I was like going the longest way around. Like I just feel like my brain just can't. And today I went back to teaching, and I was just even forming sentences like
it was tough. No.
So I could dig up a couple other names.
That's fine. Joel Green's great. Joel Green's podcast.
I think he's the best. I
default
to him because there's a lot of information out there that I actually don't think
if it's accurate.
On gut. I think everybody's right that it's a big deal.
Yeah.
But I think,
Joel Green might be the best.
I think he's the best.
Yeah, we got him coming back on in March, although not to talk about gut health, but we should probably do that sometime too.
I know, we need to bring him back on like 5 times to talk about different things.
Okay, so the topic of the show is kind of bouncing off the last show, which is basically common questions.
A couple shows ago, right?
That you're asked. I can't even remember now.
I think we had to do a
I couldn't.
We were too sick last.
I was too sick last Thursday. I was too sick last Thursday to do water break last Thursday.
So we just did a throwback
rerun.
Thursday.
Yep. Yeah. So 2 weeks ago we did our first show, so you might want to go back and check that out.
I think we had Cam on. Right, and then before that was this one, I think, but I could be wrong. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, this is
these are common questions that you've been asked, basically.
Questions that I'm asked all the time, and we got through like seven or something, and there's a lot longer of a list. So we were like, well, let's just keep going.
So Annie's been in the health industry for 20 years, and after 20 years, you kind of start to get repeat questions, and then those repeat questions become a nice source for maybe our average listener to kind of hear about. and everything, because they probably probably a lot of y'all who are out there have a lot of probably the same questions that you want to answer. So we're on number 8. We're going to start on number 8. So you can go back and listen to our podcast we did, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, maybe 3. We don't know.
We should stop guessing.
Yeah.
But we did it a little while ago.
And that'll be a good first half of this conversation. And then here's kind of the second half of the conversation of frequent questions that you're asked.
You can go back if you want to. They're in no particular order.
That's true.
They just go. They're in order of how I thought of them. All right. And I hope I can summon the right words today.
Yeah. All right. So what blood work should I be getting? Actually, I want to back up and ask the question, why should I get any blood work?
Yeah, seriously, you guys, get your blood work done.
Why?
Yeah, so there's the people out there who never get their blood work done, and you need to, and we can talk about why. And then there's okay, well, I know I need to get my blood work done, or I'm going to start. Yeah. What should I ask for, or should I specifically ask for anything, or should I just let my doctor order whatever they want to order? So there's kind of 2 different camps. So I just think, we've talked about this before, I just think blood work is such a relatively cheap and easy, accessible to anyone who has access to a doctor. And you can even now go online independently on your own and order your own stuff and just go into a lab and get it too. So it's just so easy and affordable. And it is so, such helpful information just in terms of just both your current state of health, and also it gives you a baseline so that over time, as years go on and you ideally get this done annually, you will see your trajectories. Because even if, a lot of times people don't start getting their blood work done until their doctor makes them, or until they start feeling bad, right? Something's happening, like I'm gaining weight, or my blood sugar seems really out of control, or my doctor said I have to, or you know what I mean? Like they're starting to have problems, but really, and that's fine. Yeah, get it done. But because it'll be very telling for you in a lot of ways. But I've said this before, I didn't start getting mine done. And I hear a lot of women say this, you go through your baby having years and you're just like a pin cushion, and they're always taking blood, and they're not looking at everything, but they're managing your glucose and looking at all these other things. So you're under very scrutinized doctoral or midwife care during those baby having years. And then once you stop having babies, it's well, you don't go to the gynecologist anymore. So most women don't even have a doctor. And then 10 years goes by and they start having more perimenopausal type issues, weight gain, brain fog, and they're I guess I should probably go to the, what should I do? And that's a lot of people's stories. And I wasn't that different. I didn't start getting regular blood work done until my 30s. And I wish, and by the time I got to blood work, for example, my thyroid was completely in the tank, and that was one of the reasons that I was motivated to go get it done, because I knew something was off. But I wish I had, 10 years previous blood work so I could have known what tanked it and when, and you know what I mean? That would have been really useful. So even if you're feeling good and you're not I feel like you're not feeling like you're having any problems, if you feel like you're in good health, I would still get it done annually. Okay. It's really not that expensive. Even if you're completely paying out of pocket, a lot of people can get at least some basic blood work covered by insurance, or, go through direct pay or something. It's not that bad. And it's a very small preventative price to pay to know what you're dealing with, and then to make the changes that you might need to make. So I think everybody should be doing it. And there's differing opinions on how in depth you want to go, how detailed you need to be. I'm just, the recommendations I'm going to give you guys is just sort of very basic. I think you can be really thorough if you have the money, your doctor's on board, you're motivated by metrics like this, and you're just really interested in this sort of stuff. I tend to do that. I tend to get more extensive blood work than probably a lot of other people might want to get or even need to get. But I think at least the basics are really, really valuable. And the interesting thing is that when doctors say, any doctor, if you're hey, I'd like to get some annual blood work, they'll be great. But every doctor has a different opinion on what annual, blood work should be or is. And
what the panel should look like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to give you guys kind of a basic list of what I, at least from a health coach standpoint, the kind of blood work that's super informative to me, so that I can help someone with lifestyle, with stress management, with nutrition. That's a big one. Make some of these markers move. And a lot of these are very, very, they 100% correlate to how somebody feels. Okay. And some of this, naturally, a doctor would...
100% or likely?
Very likely.
Highly likely.
Very likely. Yeah, very likely. There's always exceptions. So anyways, so I would say always ask for a CMP. That's just your comprehensive metabolic panel. Most doctors will order that anyways. And a lipid panel is nice just to keep track of what your cholesterol looks like, what your just what all of your
lipid panel.
Yeah, we call it a lipid panel.
Now, some doctors might, let's say, they'll take some cholesterol, but not the other kind of cholesterol. I remember something happening one time.
Most of them will at least do basics. They'll look at LDL, HDL, cholesterol total, triglycerides. And now you might get flagged high, whatever, and that's actually not a concern, or maybe it is, but at least they'll do the draw usually. I mean, most docs are traditionally trained to care quite a bit about cholesterol. The CMP will include your glucose. So and that should be done in the morning fasted. So you'll get that. But the one thing that we've talked about a lot on the show that you should specifically ask for also is your fasted insulin, I think. And most doctors just don't. At least, maybe if you have a functional doctor, a more naturopathic doctor, they might think that a fasted insulin should be included, in your regular annual blood work, whether or not you're symptomatic, you know what I mean? Whether or not you're showing symptoms of, do you have diabetes? That kind of thing. Because, one of the most important and most indicative long-term markers of health, hands down, is a body's ability to manage insulin.
Yeah.
Like 100%. And and remember, you can end up with really high insulin years and years and years before your actual A1C or your glucose flag high. So wouldn't that be good to know, like, what your trajectory was? Like, okay, my glucose is 90 and that's not flagged high, and my A1C is like a 5.5, which is, a little high, but not like pre-diabetes high. But what if your fasted insulin is sitting at a 35 and it's been there, or it's slowly climbing, every year, which is usually what happens, for years, and you could have made changes, but you just didn't. You didn't, because that warning sign, that warning flag was never looked at. So, and I also want to be clear that you can get to where your insulin is high by eating, for years and years and years, eating the crappy garbage standard American diet, tons of processed foods, tons of, highly processed sugar, things like that. Obviously, you can also get there by eating super low carb for years and years and years also. So just keep that in mind, you guys. And no matter what kind of mental gymnastics you want to do or lies you want to tell yourself, if your insulin is through the chart, is super high. And as a note, ideally you want it 5 or under. Okay. That's a tall order for a lot of Americans, but if you're at a 25, that's not good. And if you keep doing what you're doing, it's probably just going to keep slowly going up. And what I was saying about the mental gymnastics is, if you've gone low carb for a really long time in the name of trying to bring that insulin down, if it's not working, it's not working. And I've seen, in my space at least, just as many people going carnivore or keto for extended amounts of times with insulin doing nothing but going up. I've seen just as many of those as I have people who are just, eating ding dongs every day. So just keep that in mind. So fasted insulin, most doctors will accommodate if you ask, but just know it will not magically be ordered most of the time. I do not know why. I don't know why. I am baffled by that. Some of these other ones I'm going to recommend, I can see why they'd be like, well, we're not going to ask for that unless we have a reason to, but fasted insulin I don't get. So be very specific. Make sure you ask for that. And that's true for men and women. Do you have anything you want me to keep going? Okay, we're going to get through like 2 questions today. Talking slow and my brain is a fog. I also really love to see a morning cortisol. And I know that one serum draw of cortisol in the morning is just a moment in time. It is not going to tell you what your cortisol is doing for the rest of the day, which is why, if you really have reason to believe you have adrenal dysfunction, the best way to test that is
in the morning.
Well, all through the day.
Okay.
So there's a salivary test. It's like a spit test that I've done this, that you can do with a doctor who knows what they're doing. Where there's 4 different points during the day that you test your cortisol. That's going to be way more helpful, because some people come in just fine in the morning, but then maybe it tanks in the afternoon and you're so tired, and then it spikes at night, and that's why you can't sleep, and that would be, obviously, you're having some major adrenal dysfunction, usually due to years and years of chronic stress. But it at least gets your foot in the door at just looking at, okay, first thing in the morning, where is your cortisol? It should be the highest that it is all day for you, right? Because cortisol is it gets you
it's
up.
Like, wake up. Let's get going.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't want it super high. Like if it's 25, that's too high. Okay, we want to look at that. Too high in the morning. But if it's like 4, that's too low, right? So if you at least get an idea of, okay, where we're at, and usually, I'm just going to say this right now, you guys, if you, and stress is just going to be a theme all the way. When I was writing out these questions, I was like, gosh, it's really just a masterclass on how stress wrecks your health and it's probably like the most impactful negative input to health out there. Like, and I mean, like every year I do this, stress is like getting higher and higher on the list. I mean, maybe it's number one. Maybe it is. It's just so high. But all that to say, if you are somebody, as I'm talking now about morning cortisol, and then as we talk more and stress comes up, who's wondering about your own adrenal health, Dr. Isabella Wentz is one of the best resources on this that I've been able to find. And she's good because her info is good, but also it's very digestible. Any podcast interview you can find where she's interviewed, she's great. She's written several books, several on Hashimoto's because she deals with that too. And honestly, thyroid and adrenal dysfunction tend to come like a package deal, like very much hand in hand. It's kind of like which came first. I don't really know, but she wrote a book that I've read several times. It's ATP, Adrenal Transformation Protocol. I believe that's what it's called. Isabella Wentz. She has a Z in both of her first and last name. It's very good. And it's so common for women in particular because we don't handle stress as well. And we also somehow allow ourselves to get more stressed out one way or another than a lot of dudes do, just because of the way we are. This is an issue for so many women. So if you want more info on that, just basically how to really love on your adrenals and get your cortisol production back to where it should be, get to feeling better, having the right amount of energy at the right time of day, et cetera, that's a great resource. Okay. So morning cortisol, it's not everything. And if anytime I'm working with someone and their cortisol is either super high or super low, sometimes it's a fluke. Sometimes retesting is worth it, because a lot of these other tests, they cost some money. So sometimes you just are like, okay, let's just retest that. And if it's still super high or super low, then I'd say go find a doc who knows how to do a salivary test and let's get a little more of an idea of what's going on here. Okay. Men can do that too, but I see disrupted cortisol being more of an issue for women for sure. So just, there you go. I also really like to ask for B12. Most docs won't order that unless basically never.
B12 blood work. Why? Yeah. Why would you want B12 blood work?
Well, because so many women in particular are really low, and it's so it pulls thyroid down. Low B12 can mimic low thyroid and actually pull down thyroid function. It also is like greatly related to mood. To the point where women are put on antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds all the time. When
B12 would just...
When their B12 was like 100 and it should have been like a 900. And when you bring it up, all those, not always, but a lot of times, all of those issues go away. So it's just like, why would you not test for that? And it's big. It just plays a big role with a lot of things. Energy. And this is one of the reasons you take your B complex in the morning is because they're very energizing. And I just can't believe how in the tank B12 in particular is for women. And you just
would that be the same thing for men, where men's B12 could be low?
Yeah, totally. I just see it more with women. Like they're more depleted. I don't know if part of it is like we bleed once a month. There's probably a bunch of factors there. Yeah. But I push that harder on women. But I mean, if I was a dude, I'd still want to know where I was. Because.
Especially if you're kind of moody or maybe depressed
or just super low energy. Yes. And also it helps, bees help a lot with immune function too. So it's valuable enough and it's so commonly low. I think it's worth, keeping an eye on. Vitamin D is another one. And I don't know why a lot of docs won't order this one either.
Even in the North, North Idaho?
It's crazy. And I think sometimes the test is a little more expensive. So sometimes they're trying to save money, which I understand, but post-COVID, like how could we not? Like there's been so much information out about the value of vitamin D and how many people are low, and it's just like,
what does it mean to be low with vitamin D? What numbers are you looking at for low?
Yeah, this is debatable, but I like to see people at minimum above a 50, and I would say even better, like closer to like 75.
Okay.
But you really should get this tested because it's way more common for people to be low. And it's way more common for people to be able to get in the sun as much as they can, even though, like you said, around here, it's kind of hard.
Northern Idaho, during the winter.
Kind of hard. Yeah. And even supplement at an average dose or even an average to high dose and still come in low, because a lot of people, I'd say, at least in my experience, I haven't seen stats on this, but more often than not, people seem to be poor absorbers of vitamin D, but you can be a high absorber. I am. I just got my blood work done. Wasn't whatever. It's just for my other hormone stuff that I'm doing, but I just got it done and my vitamin D is 127, which is like way too high, way too high. And I knew I was going to get an earful from the MP that I was talking to, but the reason it was high is because I kind of mega dosed for a couple days just because this was earlier. It wasn't I was trying to avoid sickness, and it works really well for me when it was when Cash was sick.
Yeah.
And so I'll just take
So it's like a month ago.
Yeah,
so.
it was just right a little, like maybe a week before I got that blood work done. But I'd taken the standard dose is probably anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 IUs a day. That's probably like your standard dose. And most people are fine on that, if not low still, but I was mega dosing for a couple of days. I do that. I take zinc at night and I do quercetin, and it almost always works. Like I barely ever get sick, but it drove mine up. I must just absorb really well. And I don't know why, but so for someone like me, I really don't need to be taking as much. So that's why I say test, don't guess. I think the really super absorbers are more rare, but it's still worth knowing where you're at. And it's just, it's huge. It's huge
like a low vitamin D level would be like what, like 10, 15,
Oh yeah,
20?
anything under 50.
Okay.
Anything under 50, honestly, you guys. And sun is best. But we have to be realistic.
We're in Northern Idaho.
I mean, it's hard.
There's not much sun during the winter out here.
Oh man, you gotta fight for it. Okay.
Yeah.
I do recommend that people get a CRP, that's C-reactive protein. It's just basically a good inflammation marker. And I just think that's a good thing to keep an eye on, because it's the hard thing about it is it's not specific. So if it's, you want it like under a 1 or under, and if it's like a 5, you're like, okay, my body's dealing with some kind of inflammation, but you don't necessarily know where. Okay. And you have to be careful with that, because if you're injured or sick, going into your blood draw, that can flag high.
Yeah.
So watch out. But it's just nice to know, just, systemically speaking, are you super inflamed or not? And that really matters,
CRP, repeat that name again.
CRP, C-reactive protein. That's all it is.
And so it's a reactive protein.
That's just what it's called. When there's inflammation present, your body
will release that protein.
Pushes out more of that protein. And so they're just measuring
So if you're
how
high
much
in that protein.
Yeah, it's just something's off. Yeah. Something's off. It's not specific, but I think it's good to kind of, keep an eye on that. And then we will move on here. But I would say the only thing that's left that doctors normally would not ever order as a part of annual blood work unless they had, extreme reason to believe that something with your thyroid is off. And I'm not someone to say, hey, let's just every year you should just test everything. I think that's dumb. It can create.
You should have a baseline.
Well, but there are certain things like B12, like vitamin D, like morning cortisol that I feel like are warranted for the average person, because they are so indicative of issues, and those issues are so common. And thyroid for women, the longer I've been in it, there are so many women out there walking around with super, super sluggish, unhealthy thyroids. It is so common. And I don't think that's that weird, because our thyroids are, thyroid function is sensitive to stress. We'll talk about stress as we keep going. And so you just, as you get older, that thyroid just gets pushed down and pushed down and pushed down due to stress, due to lifestyle choices, due to the kind of exercise we choose to do, how much sleep you're getting, all the things, So I think even if you don't have a reason to be like, I feel really hypothyroid, or I'm wondering about my thyroid, I think you should be checking on it every year. Now, that's up to you guys if you want to do that. At minimum, if you have any of the classic hypothyroid symptoms, which is weight loss resistance, puffiness, not handling cold well, just generally having a lower body temperature, dry skin, constipation, hair shed, brain fog, get your thyroid checked and be specific with your doctor. Because if you just say, hey doc, I really feel like I have some hypothyroid symptoms, can we look at my thyroid? Your doctor 100% or almost 100% of the time will be like, sure. And they'll look at your TSH, they'll maybe look at your T4, and that is it. Okay. And that's not good enough. If you're a classic case of hypothyroidism and it's bad enough, maybe your TSH will flag high, but there are so many women out there, some men too, but it's more women, who have an in range, as they would say, TSH, but are severely hypothyroid. So you need to make sure that you specifically ask for TSH, free T3, free T4, and at least your TPO antibodies to check to see if you've got antibodies in your body attacking your thyroid. And that would be indicative of it being Hashimoto's, which most cases of hypothyroidism among women right now are autoimmune. They are Hashimoto's. So it's worth checking on that. Okay. Yeah. Why wouldn't you? Especially if you're dealing with any of those symptoms. And that list of hypothyroid symptoms has almost become, synonymous with just getting older. Like, it's almost like everyone can't lose weight and is puffy and cold and has brain fog. And it's just part of getting older. But it doesn't have to be. I can't believe that we've normalized those symptoms, and those symptoms can come from other places. Low ferritin will mimic that. Really low B12 will mimic that. Sometimes low progesterone will mimic that. So this stuff is important. And if you're not feeling good, push for these things.
Yeah.
And even if you are, I would say, okay, at least push for those things if you're not feeling good. But even if you are, get your baseline so that you can see your trajectories over time.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's not even everything. I didn't even talk about testosterone for men. I'm not even going to touch testosterone. I want to bring Amy Horniman back on to talk about it because I think men and women should both be getting their testosterone tested. But the thing is, it doesn't matter if you get it tested if you're not working with a doctor who believes in helping you replace it. So let's just get Amy on here and we'll talk about that because testosterone is a big deal.
Okay. I want to go to number 10. We'll get back to maybe number 9 if we have time.
Sure, yeah. We're
how much
watching the clock. We're not going to make it.
How much protein should I eat?
Yeah, I get protein. I get asked this question.
Lots of steak. Lots of steak. Lots of burgers.
So many burgers.
Lots of
Sonic. So many burgers. Okay, well, my answer to this, as my answers for a lot of these things, has actually become more nuanced over time. Back in the day. Well, coming from the,
Me no like that word.
Gabe hates the word nuance. I mean, I don't know what better word to use. Back in the day, me, coming out of the gym scene, I mean, that's really where most of my time, my formative years were spent. I mean, protein is king, right? It's just like, you just got to eat more protein. You can't go wrong. I've literally heard experts in the field say protein is like the one macronutrient that you really just can't, there's literally no downside. Like there's just like, you can't eat enough. And it's so good. It's always good. It's never bad. And it's just like everybody's not eating enough. And, in their defense, there are a lot of people out there. If you look at the standard American diet, they're not eating enough. They're not barely eating any. And the stuff that they are eating isn't good. So I understand it. And it's the little darling of the health space because it does help with muscle synthesis, right? You need that in order to build muscle and get strong, and which I'm a huge fan of. And on the diet side of things, one of the reasons it is so popular is because it's so satiating. It makes you full. So I get it. And it's nice to feel full because feeling hungry all the time for whatever reason is very uncomfortable. And it often hunger sabotages whatever diet plan you're trying to do because you're too hungry, right? So just shoving, I mean, I just can't even believe how much protein some people eat or tell people to eat, but just trying to do that, you're full. Okay. So that's really one of the things, but all that to say, I'm not anti-protein at all. I do love protein. I eat on the higher side of protein myself, being as active as I am. Plus, those are the kinds of foods that I really enjoy. I really enjoy meat. I really enjoy eggs. I really enjoy Greek yogurt. They're delicious to me, so it's no problem. But if you guys were here to listen to Cam McDonald, who was on, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, whenever it was, we touched on this, and I asked him about the recommendation because this is a real recommendation. Dr. Gabrielle Lyon will say, you should try to eat. And she'll just say this to anybody, like anybody. That's the thing. It doesn't matter who you are or what your context is. You should be trying to eat a gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. Okay, so that's like if you're a regular person, that's your body weight. If you're grossly overweight, if you're like 300 pounds, you can obviously eating 300 grams of protein is probably not even physically possible for you. So you're supposed to just be like, okay, well, I think 185 is probably really healthy.
185 grams.
That's my target weight.
Saying.
That's my target weight. Yeah. If I could lose all this weight, that's where I would want to be. So that's how many grams to eat, which is still a crap ton of protein.
Yeah.
I think that's insanely high. I don't think the evidence actually supports that at all. And then I think beyond that, just in terms of top threshold, and then beyond that, there's just some bodies, as Cam touched on, that eating that amount of protein is simply going to give them health problems, and it is just going to do nothing but stimulate insulin and stimulate their body to grow. And usually these are the bigger, stronger bodies, and that's the last thing they want. So this is what I mean by nuance, and so I will say this, I think reasonable guidelines, I think the 1 gram per pound is crazy high. I don't think you're getting any benefit by going that high. I mean, maybe if you're an athlete, like a bodybuilder on steroids, your body could maybe actually in a positive way turn some of that, and anabolize that into actually more muscle. But for a normal person, even if you're training, I think that's insanely high. I think the more reasonable recommendation for just if we're talking generally would be anywhere from 0.6 to 0.8 grams of protein per pound of ideal body weight, right?
So if I'm 200 pounds, it's like about 100 grams.
Well, 0.6 to 0.8, whatever that math turns out, it's going to be.
Roughly.
Yeah. So it gives you a range. But
a little north of that.
But I'm also going to say this. Pay attention to how you feel. Protein is by nature insulinogenic. It causes your body to produce insulin. And I think so many people do not understand this, which is why so many diabetics or people who have been diabetic for a long time they have very poor success with insulin management when they eat a lot of protein. They actually don't feel very good. And in the diabetes world, they all know this. Like no one listens to them or talks to them. They're not like really the popular cool kids, but in the diabetes world, they know this. Like their insulin is not well managed when protein intake is really high because it's very insulinogenic. Now, if you're a body that does not have that metabolic tendency, if your insulin just naturally, you manage it really well, you have a very like high metabolism, that's just not the way your body system's lean, you can probably handle more protein and that's perfectly fine. So all that to say, you guys, generally speaking, and this is a generalization, it really comes down to the individual, but the bigger and taller and just like bigger of a body that you are, you probably don't need as much because your body is so good at growing. Usually that sort of body already kind of deals with poor, a lot of insulin insensitivity, metabolic issues. That's just the way that your body, which just means it conserves really well. And any small stimulus that you give it to grow, it's going to grow, right? And a lot of times that's maybe some muscle, but that can also be fat too. It just grows well. Okay. So feeding it a ton of protein, and if your goal especially is to lose weight, which is most people's goal, isn't going to be beneficial for you. But then again, if you get down to these smaller bodies, these smaller, like naturally, clearly leaner, more petite bodies, they're the ones that are going to need the protein in order to grow any amount of muscle. And they naturally just are more catabolic. So they need it. Does that make sense? And it's just funny because a lot of times you look at the person, you look at the fitness influencer who's making the recommendations, they're like, I eat a gram per pound, or whatever. And it's like, well, okay, but that works for you because of the kind of body that you particularly have. You get some of these other bigger people in here trying to lose weight, doing that same thing. They have terrible success. And a lot of times it does nothing but drive their insulin up, which is, for some people counterintuitive. But so that's what I mean by it's nuanced. I do think protein is great. I think it's a building block for a lot of different tissues in our body. It's super important for muscle growth. And if you're coming from a place of being horrendously under proteined, then you can work on that. You can eat more and that's great. But it's like protein is God right now. And I actually think we're going to run into some really like long-term issues. Problems. With people eating
because we've been emphasizing protein so
much of it. And also when you're eating so much of something, that's usually to the exclusion of other things. I think a lot of these people are not eating enough plant foods. They're not eating enough fiber, and their guts and their colons and all these different things, their kidneys are going to suffer down the road. So anyways,
give me some example, kind of with that said, give me some examples of like a variety of proteins.
What do you mean?
That like, something besides steak, what variety of proteins to eat?
Interestingly, almost all food has some protein in it. Animal, and the vegans will bring this to your attention every time they have a chance. Like, peas have protein and beans have, they do. A lot of them are incomplete, so you have to eat them in combination with other things so you can get a full protein profile. But if you're like logging your food, you'll see, okay, everything has a little bit of protein in it. Meat is gonna, and animal protein in general is considered the most bioavailable. So in terms of protein that your body can actually break down and use, animal protein is considered best, but I love people to eat as much variety of different kinds of meats as they possibly can. I think a lot of people get stuck on one kind. Eggs are obviously great. Dairy products can be great. Greek yogurt, cottage cheese are wonderful. But and you do get some amount from things like legumes, so your beans, your lentils, rice even. You combine them, you can get a perfect protein. So just variety is ideal. And just remember that depending on the kind of body that you have, protein, especially if you pound it right before dinner, may just literally tell your body to just grow, just grow and grow and grow. And that might not be what you want,
Okay. Kind of moving on to almost a separate topic. This will be our probably our last question for today.
I know we did so poorly today, so long-winded.
Let's talk about sleep.
Oh yeah.
We all love a good night's sleep.
Yes.
So one of the common questions you get is why can't I sleep?
Yeah, it's probably, this is for men too, but huge for women. I would say, especially as women get a little older, like into that like 30s and 40s, the two biggest complaints that I get, hands down, health wise, is I can't lose weight. Close second, maybe it's in first. I can't sleep. And what happened? Like what's happening? Because like most of us sleep pretty well when we're younger, and there's always exceptions. But and then you go through these baby having years where you're not sleeping well, but you at least know why. Your baby's waking you up.
At least you think you know why.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the baby's waking you up. You're feeding
Yeah.
babies in the middle of the night. Your little kids are waking you up in the middle of the night. So it's
Yeah.
not great sleep, but you don't feel like a crazy person because you're like, well,
the kids.
I'm getting woken up.
Yeah, I need to take care of kids.
So usually once you get past that phase, I know some women are still in it, depending on what age you are when you have your kids, where sleep can really go downhill.
Yeah.
And it is so frustrating. And I mean, I don't blame them for being just so frustrated about it, because it's not just about sleeping. It's not just like, oh, well, shoot, I'm going to wake up and be tired tomorrow, even though that's not nice. But like, it affects everything: your ability to lose weight, your ability to like cognitively function, your blood sugar regulation, your leptin levels. Like literally, it's almost impossible for a human being who is sleeping really poorly to feel good and to lose weight at all.
Yeah,
like it's that impactful, just for about a billion different reasons. So, there can be so many reasons why someone isn't sleeping. So I'm just put down the top 3 reasons that I've seen, but this does not mean that this is exclusive. Like there's a lot of, you could literally have a kid that you've refused to sleep train. And that's why you don't sleep. It could be a lot of things. You could have a husband who snores like a freight train, and that could be why you don't sleep. You could have an injury that wakes you up. Because
there's a number of external
totally.
Issues that can pop up. Yeah.
But I'd say just in terms of what I see as the most common drivers, especially for women, like mid-30s up into mid-40s and above, are these 3. Number 1, stress. And I told you stress is going to come up again. But stress. And I think one of the things that we need to understand is that stress can mean life stress. It can mean mental, psychological stress. It could also be stress coming from the way that you're exercising, the kinds of foods that you're putting in your body or not putting in your body. All of those things that I just listed are potential inputs for stress. And I think a lot of us don't understand that. If you're somebody who's prone to anxiety, you might recognize that and be like, yeah, well, I lay there in bed and I just worry and I worry and I worry and then I can't sleep. Yeah, that's true. That's stress, right? But there's so many other forms of stress that may not, flag on your radar as I am sending stress signals to my body by doing this super intense CrossFit workout at 5 a.m. in the morning, which is actually dysregulating my cortisol to the point where actually it tanks. And then, at 2 a.m., it spikes again. And so I wake up at 2 and I have no idea why.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wide awake.
That's due to a stress that is not appropriate for you at that time, but you may not make that connection. But addressing stress is such a big deal. It is very common that women who are going very low carb or doing a fairly aggressive, depends on the person, I guess, fasting, especially over time, they sleep very poorly. Your stress hormones come up when you do that. That's just the way that it is. That's what you're running on.
Yep.
Corticosteroids and among other things. And it almost always negatively affects sleep. There can be exceptions. And there always are. So don't be offended if you do a lot of fasting and you just sleep like a baby. Then I'm not questioning you at all. But I hear it all the time. I'm eating low carb, or I've been doing all these these fasts or this time restricted eating. My eating window is like 4 hours long, and they're like, I feel good during the day, but they just can't. They just cannot sleep. And carbs spins stress down, they do,
right.
and food in general, but carbohydrates in general. So stress, and again, if you are one of those people, it's like I have all kinds of symptoms that are pointing me towards thinking that my adrenal function is not good. Get help on that, okay? And again, that book by Isabella Wentz, Adrenal Transformation Protocol, is very good, and that's a great place to start. But yeah, stress is a huge one. Another number 2, especially with women in at this phase of life, is low progesterone. This is just a time of life where we start kind of moving into a phase that we call perimenopause, where you're not in full menopause by any stretch of the imagination, and you may not be for like 8 to 10 years, but your ovaries' ability to produce hormones cyclically at the right levels that they are supposed to be, getting pumped out, is starting to go down. And a lot of times what you see is your progesterone being too low, or your production of progesterone being too low, or being too low just relative to how it is sitting in ratio with your estrogen. Okay. And progesterone is like, if you don't have it, you don't sleep. Like it's like, that's one of the, and so whenever any woman like 35 or above says, I I just can't sleep. A lot of times other symptoms of low progesterone, brain fog, irritability and anxiety, because it's your kind of chill pill hormone. It's like literally helps.
Progesterone.
Yes. It helps you stay chill. Okay. And it helps you sleep. So I almost always go there. And so I didn't put that on the list.
What do you mean you almost always go there?
Oh, in my mind, like, oh, you should get your progesterone checked because you can bioidentically replace it, you guys. Like, you don't have to not sleep for 10 years, which is what a lot of women do.
And is that a blood test to check your progesterone?
Yeah. I mean, usually they can.
Progesterone?
Usually at least you'd start with serum. And they usually want to look at you between like days 18 to 21-ish. Of your cycle, because that's where progesterone is supposed to be the highest. So it does matter where in your cycle you look at it. And this is the thing, I didn't put it on the main list because this is a little bit more, the main list of what blood work you should get, it is a little more nuanced. But I mean, ladies, if you are over 30, you need to find a doctor around you, someone. And it's cool because there's more and more options to do like telehealth type stuff. They don't even have to be local. Like, there's a lot of people that will work with you virtually. That's what
Just someone you trust.
Yeah. But you need to find a doctor who understands female hormones. Okay. Like, the odds of that being just your nice little hometown family doctor is very low. They do exist. They do exist. There are doctors out there who have educated themselves because they get barely any training in female hormones. In their defense, they really barely get taught anything. Even the OBGYN, I mean, even though like the specifically lady doctors, they just get barely.
The baby doctors.
They just don't get taught in it.
Wow.
Barely anything, if anything. So in their defense, but there's some doctors out there who have taken the time to self-educate because that's what they have to do.
Yeah.
But if that's not them, hopefully they'll at least be upfront with you. The problem is a lot of them, when you ask them about this stuff, they're just like, yeah, well, that's stupid. Or it's just part of getting older. Like, rather than just being like, hey, I'm really sorry. I know female hormones are real and they're very impactful, and they do start to change, which can cause a lot of symptoms at this point in your life. I am not trained in it, but can I refer you to some? I don't know why doctors can't do that. I don't know why they won't just do that. Yeah. Like, I don't even understand. But all that to say, ladies, if you're 30 or older, you need to establish care with a doctor who understands, who is trained in and understands female hormones. Okay. We are complicated. There's a lot going on, and they can do wonderful things for you, or they can wreck you from top to bottom for a really long time. Like, and the sad thing is that it doesn't have to be that way. Okay. So really, you should be, if you're 30 or above, you should be having a doctor check everything: thyroid, testosterone, progesterone, DHEA, estradiol, all of them. But I just brought up low progesterone because it is so common and it's such a simple fix as long as you're working. But again, you can put that on your blood order. It can come in, you can be day 18 and your progesterone's undetectable. Clearly you're low. That's probably why you're not sleeping. But if your doctor doesn't know what to do with that, if they don't believe in bioidentical hormone replacement, or they just have no idea, like it's way out of their wheelhouse, they're not going to be able to help you, right? So a lab test is great, but you also need somebody who's a prescriber who knows how to help you. So find a doctor who understands women's hormones. It's going to be very important for you as you move forward. Oh, and then the last reason, and again, there's tons of reasons why you may not be sleeping, but these are just the top 3 most popular, is really poor nighttime hygiene, like sleep hygiene. And that's just the word we use in the biz. But what we mean by that is that you are just doing a terrible job setting your body up for good sleep at night, like really bad. So like, for example, screens, all right, blue light, trying to go to bed.
Your phone, in other words, yeah.
And I'm totally guilty of this. And it's funny because scrolling, like looking at funny reels or whatever, I mean, that's usually, in a way, it's like kind of brain numbing, and it feels like it's like kind of, I don't know, winding you down a little bit. Same with the TV screen, any kind of screen. But the fact of the matter is that blue light blocks melatonin production. Okay? I'll say it one more time. Blue light blocks melatonin production, which is why you can be exhausted and you're exhausted, but you can get in bed and you can you can binge watch or scroll on your phone for like 2 hours and not fall asleep. But if you were to do the same thing and get in your bed and no blue light and get out a book and try to read it, you'd probably be asleep in like 5 minutes. Okay. So, different people recommend different things in terms of how early before bed you should be getting rid of blue light. Some people are like 3 hours before bed, like just get rid of it earlier. Some people are like blue light blocking glasses. You can go a bunch of different ways with this. But the bottom line is, if you are struggling to sleep, getting rid of screens right before bed or at bedtime is a no-brainer. Yeah. I mean, if you're sleeping,
easy place to start.
It's so easy. You guys just read a book with your eyeballs. Okay. Or just do it. Your room should be really dark and cool. That's what our bodies like. And another thing is bringing body temperature up a little before bed. So like taking a hot shower also is super helpful with sleep.
Okay.
So there's a lot of things that you can do just ritual wise that will help you. And I will say this, and I know we got to check the time here. Okay, we're doing good.
Right there.
I remember, I'm going to tell a little story and then I'll come full circle. Dr. John Grauke just passed away recently. Very wonderful man, great family doctor. And also later in his career became basically a sleep specialist. Yeah. And I remember years ago, we were at a family gathering. My sister is married to his son, so we would see them in family settings sometimes. Right. I remember years ago just asking him, because I like to, anytime there's someone who's like an expert on something and who knows more than me, I love to
pick his brain. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just gonna ask like 2 questions.
Yeah.
Just like, I like to grow a little in that scenario if I have the opportunity. So I just remember asking him, hey, as a sleep guy, he did sleep studies and all that stuff. I was like, hey, what do you think, what in your opinion is the number one cause of lack of sleep or poor sleep? And he didn't even blink or hesitate. He just said, oh, hands down, anxiety. Hands down. Or however you want to name that.
Whatever that anxiety
worry,
is. Or
worry, anxiousness, anxiety,
A lot of thoughts about next day or.
Totally. Yeah. And I don't know why.
Brain's racing.
I just thought that was so interesting and I'll never forget it. And maybe it was just because he was so, like, he didn't even think. He was like, anxiety. Like 100%. So I just wanted to bring that up because while I do think stress can cause anxiety, those can be totally related. I think your hormones, low progesterone, your liver health, poor blood sugar regulation, all these things can play into your sleep as well. Like how your cortisol is, what's it doing? If your cortisol is super high at night, good luck sleeping. You're not going to sleep. But I just thought that was so interesting. So one thing, especially you ladies, and I know men can deal with this too, but I just think women are more prone to it. We're more prone to worry. Overthinking is just kind of a lady thing. We're really good at it. And a lot of times, like during the day, you're busy and you're going and you're distracted and you're just working hard and your thoughts and your thought life doesn't really catch up to you until you get in bed and you have, there's nothing else going on and it's quiet. It's like in the shower or in bed. You know what I mean? Yeah. So some of this, if that's you, and it's actually just your thoughts, your thought life that is causing you to not be able to sleep. And remember, our physiology and our thoughts affect each other. Like, so if you sit there and worry, you can drive your cortisol up. Yeah. Like, and I've seen studies, I've read studies done where they take a group of people. I think this is hilarious because who knows what these people look like, but they made them run like an 800 or something. Mm-hmm. I think it was untrained individuals and they made them like do 2 laps around, and, everybody's cortisol goes up and they hate it and it's terrible. And then they brought them back in the next time and they're measuring cortisol on both of them. It's the same group. And all they did was tell them to think about running the 800, which they had just done.
Don't run it. Just think about it.
Cortisol went just as high.
That's funny.
So that's actual physical stress response versus perceived stress. Okay. So you really can't, like, our thoughts and our physiology are connected.
That's funny.
That's why God says, cast your cares upon him, because that actually will help your body and your mind to calm down, right? Like, and I mean, obeying is hard, and I think comes more naturally to some than others.
Be anxious for nothing.
Totally,
Give it up with prayer.
These things do affect you, okay? Right. And some of this is just poor thought life habit. Mm-hmm. Some of us maybe need to just be praying before bed at bedtime. And some people do really well with what we call a brain dump, where you just write it down.
Right.
Like
right.
all
get
the
it
things
off your
that are
chest, get out of your mind kind of thing.
And I know for me, I don't tend to, I don't know if it's because I'm like dead inside or I have no conscience or what, but I sleep fine. Like I don't lay in bed and worry about anything. I probably should be more concerned about some of the things in my life or things I need to work on. I just don't. I just go right to bed. But throughout the day, brain dumps help me a lot because I have a hard time focusing or feeling relaxed if there's lists in my head or things that I think I might forget in my head or just anything. Yep. So I just have learned to write it down, which is why my space, which is often our kitchen table, just covered in sticky notes, because it just helps me to write it down. And once it's written down, it's like I give my brain permission to just let it go. Right. And then I can focus on something else, relax more, think more clearly. Mm-hmm. And I think the female brain just has a tendency to want to fire like at a bunch of different, on a bunch of different levels all at once. Yeah. Like we can physically and mentally multitask well, but I think that can come back to bite us when it comes to being able to wind down, calm down, and sleep. So I just do that brain dump, work on your prayer life, which is work on your mental life. Maybe if you're a verbal processor, ask your husband to like, can we just talk some stuff out? Right. It just might be that is actually the big missing piece there. Yeah. And I've had a lot of clients they've had to figure out the right thing that they needed, but once they were able to calm their brain down, they slept. Yeah. So it's just something to think about.
Very good.
Yeah. Anyways, well, we got through like none of those, barely any.
We got 4, I think.
I hope I even made sense in my talk about brain fog.
You did well.
Oh man.
You didn't cough like I did. I was muting my over here coughing.
I can't believe I didn't cough this whole time.
You did all right.
I reached my quota of coughing earlier today.
That's right.
Oh my goodness.
Next week we're gonna be in the studio. We'll be in the studio next week.
Yeah, we have a couple.
And we got some interviews coming up.
We're getting Cam McDonald back on, you guys.
Yep, Cam.
I cannot wait. I'm gonna get him to talk hopefully more in depth about the 6 health types, and you guys are gonna find it super, super interesting. I can't wait to do that.
And so I likely will just be coming like right in.
Oh, you're coming back. Like, you think you'll make it?
I'll be back. I think I land in Spokane at 12:30, which means I can be here at 2, which means our show starts at 12:15. 2:15. Excuse me.
Okay.
So I should be okay.
Barring travel trouble, we will be here next week. We haven't done an AMA in a while. Do you want to do one of those?
AMA, ask me anything.
Hey, good job.
AMA, I've finally got the buzzwords figured out.
The acronyms.
Yeah. Figured out. That's possible. Let's talk through some things. I'm gonna be traveling. I'm gonna be in Oklahoma and Texas this next week, and Oklahoma's a tough one for me because I was born in Texas.
He hates Oklahoma with a passion. So
I told some great
him.
jokes to my junior high basketball team this morning about me being in Oklahoma.
The Oklahoma sucks jokes.
That's a classic one.
Yeah, they're gonna love that in Oklahoma. So I think that's gonna be really good.
It always goes well.
Yeah.
I know my audience. Well, hey everyone, thank you for joining Water Break. If you want to be in a conversation with us, email us at wrenchmedia@gmail.com. That's wrench, R-E-N, no W, R-E-N-C-H, wrenchmedia@gmail.com. And you can follow Annie on Instagram and me on Twitter. So X. Thank you very much for tuning in. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, share the show. That's always a big help for us. And you can, of course, the best place you can watch us is on our Fight Laugh Feast app. That's the nicest place because there's other shows on the network too, just besides Water Break. You got Cross Politic, you got other shows happening on the network that I think you guys will also find enjoyable too and what you're doing. So thank you for joining us. Anything else, baby?
No.
All right.
Good to see you guys. See you next week.
Have a good week.
America is a country that was founded for the purpose of allowing Christians to do their duty before God and not to have their consciences ruled by the doctrines and commandments of men. Reese Fund exists in order to see the 10 Commandments properly applied, not just as a plaque on the wall, but to actually be used in business as though they're commandments from God that we're supposed to obey. Our goal is to find businesses and to buy them and to build them up. We want to find manufacturing businesses and use them to make sure that we can maintain our capacity to do things here. Reese Fund, Christian capital